Hey everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So happy to have you guys joining me. Yeah, I am going to be talking a little bit today about just living arrangements with a lot of people in a house. How do you do that really well? And I'm going to speak from my experience in many different ways that I have lived abroad and domestically in the United States with people. And I'm also going to pull from the experiences of different friends of mine who've done BSSM with like a ton of people, and then, every kind of experience in between. So bear with me here because this is probably going to be a pretty messy video. There's any number of amounts of information, but I'm specifically trying to answer this question that was given to me by an amazing lady who supports my channel and also me in general. So she asked me, what are your suggestions on how to live with 6 people from across the globe who are all attending BSSM? My 18-year-old daughter will be attending this year, and it would be helpful to have some living arrangement tips. Thanks for your advice. So there's a lot of ways this could go, okay? So I'm 29. I'm actually going to be 30 in a month. So my perspective on living may be very different than the perspective an 18-year-old is going to have, especially if it's their first time living away from home. But I started living away from home when I was 20. Well, actually, I lived away from home at 18 for a while when I lived abroad in England. For 6 months I was away, and then I lived another 6 months in South Korea when I was 21-ish, and then I lived in Germany with a bunch of people from all kinds of countries when I was like 24, and then I lived out here with several people in my late 20s. So I feel like I've had quite an experience. And yet, I can't say that there is one good way of doing it, or, I think my information is going to be, again, pretty general, but we'll just see where Holy Spirit takes it. So she's younger, so she's going to need probably more support, not just from her home, but I think in general, the first place to start when she transitions in is just to really communicate honestly with her roommates, who I'm going to assume are probably near her age. Most of the students that I find that do the best actually live with people similar to their age. I think you're going to kind of be asking for some drama when you live with people that are significantly older than you, or even 5, 6, 7 years older than you, just because there's such a different perspective on life that they're coming from, and such a different standard or expectation they may have, and they've just got a lot of different life experience. So I don't know what kind of age range she's living in. My guess is that they're probably around her age, which is for the best, because in that case, you're transitioning well, and you're kind of going through all the same things, the same jitters, the same fears, the same homesickness, that kind of stuff that you can all lean on. But I would say to start with, I wouldn't be so concerned about who my roommate is and all of that as much as I would be like, hey, here's where I'm at. Maybe she's full of vigor and so excited and like utterly fearless, and then maybe she's not. But wherever she's at, just really communicating that from the start. Also, when it does come to like choosing your roommate, because most of us had to share a room at some point in our lives, just communicating, this is my sleep habits. Am I a night owl? Am I up early? Am I a clean freak? Am I really messy? Communicating what kind of a person you are, and owning that. Like, there's no shame, especially in this culture. We break shame that there's one best way to live, right? So it's really important to just accept who you are and then communicate that, and try to find the person who's going to extend the most grace to how you live, because especially sharing a room, it's so intimate. You want to vibe with the person you're living with. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a housing situation where one person's messy and the other one's not, or half the house is messy. Let's say 3 messy people, 3 clean freaks, and the clean freaks are always stressed out over the messy people, and the messy people always wish the clean freaks would just chill out. It's this like tension. It's like a bunch of cats, like, in an alleyway, like looking at each other, and nobody's doing anything. And it's just that lifestyle tension that you all learn to deal with. And I think the best way to deal with it is always through brave, honest, and open communication. And if you come into the house like that from the start, and you are already like, hey, this is the person I am, this is where I'm strong, this is where I'm weak, this is kind of how I live, and you open up that like freedom and vulnerability with the whole house from the start, then you set yourself up as a safe space for people to know they can come to you when they don't like something that you're doing, and not be afraid. And also, it frees you up to do the same as the year goes through, because there's always going to be those places where you rub a little bit. So that would be my recommendation. Setting yourself up as a clear communicator from the start, clearly owning who you are, and then making it safe for other people to do the same. Then you can do those standard things like setting up a chore chart, or some kind of expectation of like who cleans the kitchen, who cleans the bathroom, who does the dusting and the vacuuming, taking the trash out, all these things. I mean, you can sit down together and clearly communicate what are going to be the rules and expectations of the house, like within reason and with so much grace, of course. I always err on the side of like, we're all adults and I'm going to treat you like adults. Like, until you prove that you're actually a child, I'm going to treat you like you're an adult and believe that you are going to take responsibility for keeping this house in order. At least the common areas where guests are going to stay, or where the whole house shares the space. Just taking responsibility for the house. So I try to go not in the direction of like a set of rules and stuff, but you will find out pretty quickly if that's going to be a necessity, and usually tackling that and having those conversations as soon as you can, once you see, hey, we actually are going to need some like order in the house, is better than waiting. Do not stifle and hide how you're feeling and what's really getting under your skin. That does nothing good for anyone. Always communicate where you're at on just your housing. That's so important. I'm like, the number one thing my friends are so sick of hearing me say is that my house is my refuge. It's my safe space. If there's one place I'm going to fight for peace, fight, that's probably the wrong way to say it, but the one place like peace is like the most important place for me to have consistently around me is in my house. And I'll do what it takes to make sure I keep that, in the sense of creating even order and having tough conversations when I need to, in order to maintain that place of peace. And everybody ultimately appreciates it. I have tended to be the oldest person in my living situations most of the time, which for whatever reason has tended to mean that I was more the visionary of like, okay, this is the culture of the house that I have or want to have, and are you guys in agreement with it? And almost always they are, because everyone wants to live in peace. Everyone wants to live in a sense of a sanctuary. And so, okay, well then this is what we need to do to make sure that happens. Yeah, and so if you find that you have roommates that are just off the wall, they're not taking any personal responsibility, they're really lazy, they are whatever their thing is that's affecting the whole house or one person in the house, or maybe they're like really anal and like obsessive over stuff that like doesn't need to be like that. The only answer is to talk to them. If you go to your revival group pastor and say, hey, this is my living situation, guess what he or she is going to say to you? Have you spoken to them about it? The only way you can get sort of other people involved to help you in a difficult relational situation is if you've assured them you've already talked to the person about it. There's no point in gossiping with your other roommates or sitting around communicating with other people about your issues if you're not talking to them directly. So living with people in this culture is a huge way that you overcome your fear of man. and you learn how to communicate bravely and vulnerably and powerfully. Yeah, and with a ton of love and respect, I think. But I think you could speak a ton of love and be kind and wonderful without having to forfeit what you also need in a relationship and what makes you feel safe and comfortable and honored, So everybody deserves a voice. Yeah, so always go to the person, whatever your issues are, whatever they're doing wrong. I think the only nightmarish situations that I've personally heard of, because by the grace of God, I've actually had like a ton of amazing situations with people in my living experiences. I've also had some really bad ones, but I always took care of that really quickly. But for the most part, I've been really graced with good opportunities overall. But the most terrible living situations I've ever heard of really ended up being because somebody was rocking the boat, whether they were really lazy, really messy, really obsessive about clean and strict about rules and things like that. And the rest of the girls hated them, basically. And instead of directly dealing with it, they just kept kind of talking amongst themselves or pushing down their own feelings about it until they finally exploded, or the person finally felt so rejected and isolated that they felt they had to leave, or something, some big drama happened. And that's, first of all, that's not the kingdom. And second of all, that just sucks for everyone. So don't do it, don't do it. Talk to them. Always talk to them. And if you see other girls or boys, this could be for guys as well, that are like beginning to sort of rise against one of the roommates or form an alliance against somebody, hey, like stop that. Get right in the midst of it and be like, guys, this is not God. Like this is not the kingdom. Let's go to her or him and let him know what our issues are. And usually one-on-one is the best instead of like 2 or 3 on 1 to start with. If they're totally defiant and they don't care what you're saying, then you may need to bring, 2 or 3 other individuals involved. And then if it still needs more reconciling, then you can go to revival group pastors and other leadership authorities. They're happy to help if they know that you've exhausted your personal efforts to try to reconcile a situation. For me, the few issues I've ever had in living with people in my life often came when I felt that there was a major disconnection with lifestyles. For example, someone who stays up all night long and sleeps all day long because they're not in school or their job is like a weird kind of job or whatever. And I have had situations like that weren't communicated when they were interviewing to move in. And or they have a reoccurring drug habit that they haven't quite worked through. Those are very rare and odd situations that I somehow have experienced in my life. But in those odd situations, I just, I gave them multiple opportunities to change their behaviors and come into a greater alignment with what worked with the culture of the home. And when that eventually wasn't going to work, I just asked them to leave nicely, but without, negotiation. But that was because I'm on the lease. This is my apartment, so I have that kind of authority. When you're all together in the lease, you all moved in together, then there may be 1 or 2 people that kind of rises up as sort of the leaders of the house just based on temperament or whatever, but most of the time that's where the whole group needs to get into alignment. And I've heard of some girls doing like bi-weekly or once a month house meetings where they just come together and talk about what they need to change, what they'd like to see differently. And hey, for some people that works. For other people that feels religious and kind of like a chore, where they would just rather it be more organic and just talk in real life instead of having to schedule it out. But your house will have to decide what's the best way. You have to work out, shower schedules. You have to work out shared space in the refrigerators, parking spaces, lifestyle habits, nightly routines. All of this stuff has to be discussed. Doing the dishes, taking out the trash in your individual bathrooms. I mean, closet spaces that are shared. All of this stuff has to be discussed. And so if you come in really passively and you're like, oh, it'll be fine, just whatever happens, I don't want to step on any toes, like, trust me, girls, you will be miserable. Don't act like that. Come in knowing who you are, what you need, communicate that, because once someone communicates, this is who I am, this is how I live, and this is what I kind of need from people, that actually frees everybody else up to do the same. And it's like, oh, we're glad, like, oh, okay, somebody said that stuff, so no one felt like they were going to be kind of controlling or kind of, whatever temperament gets a bad name when somebody, like, clearly knows what they need. I find most insecure people and powerless people are the kind of people that are thrown off when somebody, like, knows who they are and what they need. But who cares? Like, do what I didn't do when I was 18, when I was way too accommodating for people. Take it from me, as 29 years old now, I've learned what works best for everybody, and I just go ahead and say, hey, this is how I live, this is what I need, this is what I expect. I'm totally willing to compromise where I need to, but this is going to work best for me. What about you? What works best for you? And then finding that person that most vibes with your lifestyle, and then learning how to cohabitate with the rest of the unit as you figure out your lifestyle ways. So yeah, that's my recommendation for living arrangement tips. I hope that answers it. I'm not sure what else. I do have other videos about my housing, like I mentioned, housing in Reading, and just tips on stuff like that, doing life well. But that's my recommendation for lifestyle. Now, I will also say, though, in first year, you're so emotionally drained. You're crying all the time. You're processing stuff all the time. There's always new things coming up right until the end of the year, and take it from me, all the way into the summer, you will be processing and transitioning and growing, depending on how deeply you go into the year, I guess. And so just have so much grace and mercy for each other, guys, because everyone is going to be going through stuff. Some people may start dating a person during the school year, and I have seen that cause nightmarish experiences for roommates, but it doesn't have to, as long as there's respect and honor across the board for everyone. Don't be bringing your boyfriend over to the apartment or the house till all hours of the night and putting your roommate out of her own bedroom because you guys are hanging out in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of stuff will make quick drama. But roommates shouldn't also feel that they can't date somebody because the whole house is going to be against the guy even coming over for dinner. So, it's finding those things that, work. And it all just comes, again, through brave communication. That will never not be the answer. And if you can pray together and get in any kind of routine of, like, bringing Holy Spirit, bringing the Lord up in conversation, praying, worshiping in your house together, that creates a bond that is not easily broken. And also, it just creates a flow of grace where when you do have to bring up issues, it's a safe space. You guys just trust each other. The last thing you want to be is someone who appears to be really spiritual but is actually just really hurtful in, like, day-to-day life stuff. Like, that doesn't make any sense, And I have heard of some girls where they just get really fed up with roommates that are lazy or how they view. Like, I had a friend last year who had a roommate that was constantly jumping her case about, are you getting your homework done? Should you be leaving right now? You have homework to do, and stuff that, like, really is none of their business. Because if somebody is choosing not to do their homework or not to fulfill the school requirements, hey, that's no one's business. Like, you can, if they invite you in and they express, like, this is what's going on, that's one thing, but no one needs a house mother, I would say, unless they invite you to be that role. So I would just highly recommend, if you see people that are making some really unfortunate choices when it comes to, like, academics and stuff, you got to let them make those choices. You got to let them learn from their own mistakes. But if it comes to moral stuff or stuff that's really, really affecting you, that's when you have really brave communication conversations. Not gossip, not tattletelling, those kinds of things, unless, of course, their actual life is in danger or they're making some dangerous comments towards suicide or something, But I think there's nothing that's not reconcilable. And if it comes down to, hey, you know what? I need to just live in a different house. That's totally okay. It happens all the time. People transition in and out of housing for the first few months of BSSM when what they thought was going to be one way turns out not to be the best living situation for them. So I would say, don't even come into a housing situation like gripping it super tight. I always say everything with your hands open, because you may just find, you know what, this is not the best situation for me. There could be something better out there. And then just pray about it. Invite the Lord into your situation. Sometimes he wants you to grow through what's making you uncomfortable. And so you'll stay in that house and you'll watch yourself overcome drama and likes and dislikes. And then other times he'll say, you know what, this just isn't where you need to be, and he's going to open up a door for you to go somewhere else that's much more peaceful or whatever. So trust him. Always bring everything to Jesus. And I'm not saying you don't include family. Definitely include family into any major decisions or any issues you're facing, but bring it to Jesus first. I would sometimes make the mistake of running to my family, my parents, a little too frequently and not going to the Lord. And it's not that my parents didn't have great and wonderful counsel and advice, but sometimes my dad's answer was like, well, just get out of there, or stop that, or whatever, just to get me away from whatever was hurting me, because he just wanted to protect me. And that wasn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is to stick it out, to do all you can and then stand and watch God fight for you. Watch God invade and help you overcome a situation that you thought you could never overcome. People are complex and amazing creatures, but we all need the same things. We all need love and connection. We all need to feel secure. And all of that comes from God, but every person that you're going to live with is going to come from their own life situation, their own brokenness, their own culture. Their house did things a certain way. Their lifestyle has been a certain way. And now all of you guys, with all your different lifestyle choices and cultures and languages, are living together in a big amalgamation, trying to figure out how to find a symbiotic, mutually beneficial living situation. It's complex, but it can be done when you get back to that core of like, you know what, we're all the same and we all need the same things, really. So where can I compromise? And also, what do I know I need that I can't budge on? And let's communicate about that. And I would also say, just as an American, if you're living with foreign exchange students, take the time and make the effort to get to know their culture as much as you can. Honor their culture. Because you know what? As much as you're having your own unique transition, probably a difficult transition in a lot of ways, because Redding, California is going to be super different from wherever you came from. Like, without a doubt, it's going to be different. Big transition, guys. But it's even bigger for foreign exchange students. And so while some of them may act like they're fine, they're cool, they're calm on the inside, they may actually be really struggling or growing and got a lot of questions. And so as much as you can make an extra allowance of grace for the fact that you don't even know the world they came from to come here in like an even greater sense than just another American, really dig into that and get to know them and how they think and how they grew up. Because a lot of how we lived and how we were parented, how we were raised and taught, makes up for why we are the way we are. Weird kinks and quirks and all. And once you find out those things, it kind of takes the poison out and the sting out of the weird, annoying things people do, because you're like, oh, okay. A lot of the times for me, when I meet someone's parents, I'm like, I get it. Now I get you. And I have like so much more grace for that person. It's funny. Because, we just are who we are, And I think as long as you can never, as long as you don't ever villainize someone, and as long as you don't ever victimize yourself and look at like, oh, I'm so the victim of this person's not cleaning the whatever, or talking on the phone late at night. And, no, you're not a victim. Just talk about it and give them the opportunity to change course and compromise and work with you. But especially extend grace to the foreign students who are just, especially if they're young, if they're 18, 19, 20 as well, not only Yeah, technical difficulty yet again. So anyway, not only is it their first time away from home possibly, but it's also their first time out of the country, and they're not just visiting, they are living here. So big changes, a lot of grace, a lot of compassion needs to be extended. So anyway, I hope that's helpful on some level. Take charge of your life. Be a powerful person who makes powerful decisions. No one can make you feel any way. You feel how you feel. You choose your attitudes. You choose your actions, your reactions, your responses. You choose all of it. No one can make you do any of that. So that's powerful thinking. Powerless thinking says you make me feel blah, 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 or you made me do blah, 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 when no one can make you do or feel anything. So when you're powerful, that causes you to take accountability for your own life and bring a level of leadership and authority and strength to living away from home that many of us don't realize we have until someone tells us that we get to have that kind of authority. So you have that kind of authority. So enter into, men and women, your housing situation with an assurity of who you are. And before you transition here, examine your life. Examine the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you like your clothes, the way you shower, the way you live life, so you know how to communicate what you need when you get here. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. I bless you guys as you transition well into this school year with so much grace after this fire, for the community coming with hearts to give. I know in the community, and the Bethel community even, like, we are tired. The fire has made us tired. We're wore out. We've gone through a lot. So we're so excited for a group of fiery, energetic, and fully alive students to show up and help us and just be here with the strength and the rest of God. Watch his hair going like, trying to think if there's any last minute things to say. Yeah, just remember, as you transition into school and as you go through the heart surgery that you're going to go through no matter what, you're going to go through it. You're going to have confrontations and conflicts. You're going to have likes and dislikes. You're going to have things that push you out of your comfort zone. But come ready for it, and don't be against it. Like, let it happen, just let it happen. And just remember that you are your own person going through your own experience here, and it's going to be unique to you. A lot of other people aren't going to fully get it. They're not going to be fully in it where you are. And so just having grace for everybody's experience. Some people, BSSM doesn't affect. It doesn't do much. And hey, okay. But if it really is affecting you big time, let it. Let it. Every person is their own person with their own levels of hardness and sensitivity of heart. And you will get out of BSSM what you put into it, what you want to get out of it. But don't hold other people captive to your journey and expecting them to understand where you are, because sometimes, and most of the time, they probably won't. So abandon your expectations of people. Come in just ready to tackle each day at a time. Remember what Jesus said. Don't worry for tomorrow. Worry for today. Today has enough trouble of its own, right? So there's no even sense in looking to tomorrow. Just live right now in today. Let today come at you as it comes at you. And then wake up the next day and thank God for your daily bread for that day, the provision you need to get through that day. And live like that. That will take so much stress and pressure off of your whole life, but certainly your experience here. Yeah, okay. That's it. Bless you guys. Love you. Have a great day, weekend, year, whatever it is when you watch this. Bye.